everyone, welcome to this episode of Context is King. I'm Rebecca Brayton, and with me as always is WatchMojo founder and CEO Ashkan Karbasfrooshan to discuss change, disruption, feedback.
Such buzzwords, but yeah.
All right. So you sent a memo and you published it on LinkedIn, as you are wont to do, about holding people accountable and stopping projects that didn't meet results. So
Sure.
what does that represent?
Well, it's all in the context of something I read about likability, right? Because LinkedIn around the same time had something on likability, and I would almost call my management style like an open source. So here's a memo I wrote, and here's for everybody to read it because I think it's interesting, right? I think in the context.
But also they'll just get leaked anyway. So
No, I don't think are we a leaky organization?
no, but I mean,
yeah.
Eventually, maybe.
I much rather people have the full context of what I say, and I mean, I think
It is king.
And I do think it might be helpful. So, Steve Spurrier, former Florida Gators football coach, I've said this line already, I think, on the show. I said, if people are liking you too much, it's probably because they're beating you, right? And so I think, when you talk about entrepreneurs, I like to quote another very successful entrepreneur, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who says, he's been basically operating somewhere between the improbable and the impossible, right? So entrepreneurs were by no means better. Definitely not. We have our faults. But we do tend to look for results. And then frankly, if the results are not there for our initial objective, admittedly, we either change the objective or we change tactics to achieve some sort of success. So I think ultimately, yeah, being in this unique situation where I don't have investors who blame me for stuff, historically, I would never really call things out or end projects when the results were not there. Now, it wasn't, as a general rule, sure, at some point I'd be like, let's change something. I remember you and I used to do WatchMojo FAQs. After a while, I was like, we've done 50 of these. It served its purpose. But it wasn't like, this sucks, we have to put a bullet. I mean, you
definitely, no, you get, I was in a meeting of this sucks, we have to put a bullet in it. So I'm just thinking of it.
But I think what I've done now over the years is just because we have so many more employees, so many more projects, that it wasn't a question of likability, it was just a question of opportunity cost of I even wrote, you want to live your best life, and your best life is not being frustrated. There's this picture I have of this guy who's on the phone and he's like, oh my God, I spend a lot of time now listening to why something didn't go according to plan, and it's in hindsight kind of clear why. And instead of keep trying to hit our head against the wall, I'm like, well, don't you want to be put in a position to succeed? Don't you want to be an all-star? Don't you want to be better compensated and be put king of the hill or queen of the hill? So it's not out of some spite or I say executives who are, I was going to say fascists, not fascists, sadists, whereas entrepreneurs are masochists. It's just because you fundamentally want to put people in a position to succeed. So now I definitely am a lot more open to say, look, we're doing 10 things. If 5 are doing okay, 2 are doing smashingly well, the 3 that are not doing well, after a while, maybe it's time to put a bullet in the head. So that's in terms of no, I'm talking about projects. Now with people, yeah, I absolutely think that for the longest time, I was very much I wasn't very tough on people, frankly. I was tough, but in another way. I was tough in a let's win and be intense way. But you seem to disagree.
No,
eyes, I see it in the eyes, Rebecca. What are you thinking?
No, I just think back to my first review with you ever. And I don't know if you just had me pegged wrong or were manipulating me, but
I'm not
you
manipulated.
you called me lackadaisical, which is the last word I would ever use to describe myself, and I used it as a motivator because you have to. But anyway.
Well, no, but it's because you see people. Okay, so that's the other thing. I've always seen the good in people, and I am like Mr. PR here, where I project on, and I do this also when I've had a couple of drinks, I won't lie. I become Mr. Super Positive, and I basically project the best of you on a screen for you to see. Not you, just one, but you as well. So I will see somebody that may not be very entrepreneurial, and I'm like, no, of course you're entrepreneurial. I could talk to somebody who's been for 50 years in admin just stapling documents, and I'll be like, no, you're a hustler. You've hustled in these settings, because I want to push them. And you know what? That's also what I've learned. Not everybody is like that. So you have to be realistic, and you have to be able to give people feedback. and hold people accountable. And I feel that's when like you start to kind of touch on, how do you do that? And then also like, is it like, are you okay with excuses, or do you just want explanations and all that stuff?
Well, how do you do that?
Well, I mean, okay, so I've had this line where I joke about communication is key, right? I mean, one of the mistakes people do sometimes, anecdotally, I'll tell a colleague, I'm like, hey, could you find a little bit of time on my schedule for us to meet? I really want to talk about something. And just to tell you perspective, no, but it's not, it's like basically I'm
That's
ordering
manipulative,
you.
though.
No, but I'm saying because my schedule is
No,
going to bend around yours. Like I'm here to serve, right? So again, like
No, but I mean in terms of oh great, now I have to wait until Ash is.
no, you can come talk to me now.
Yeah.
You can but I'm assuming you may be busy, and I don't want to be like my time is. Again, all my intentions are the perception of my intentions. Unfortunately, are not it. But the point is, this one colleague this week, and again, this is open source management, whether you like it or not. But I told him this. I said, look, it's very funny that you said, oh, I looked at your calendar and there were all these blocks and you seem busy. I said, but isn't it interesting that you didn't see all the empty slots? And I go, that's what we have to work on. You have to be comfortable to talk to me. You have to be
I don't even look at your schedule. I just
you
go
just
to
come.
your
That's good. I like that. That's actually my favorite thing. So I think communication is key. And as much as I'm obviously very hyper, I talk very loud and I talk a lot, I'm generally never really angry. When I get upset, and there's a difference there, it's because I feel we're like missing out on opportunities and people are not being the best that they can be. And that frustrates me. But also, I have this line that I say that it's not, I don't know where I read it, but I go, quote, somebody's got to do the yelling, end quote. I don't like to yell.
Bad cop. You need a bad cop.
You need a bad cop. And what I've realized is, though, sometimes you have to yourself be the bad cop. Now, when you're always the good cop, then I think people are like, oh, is that weakness? Is Ash too nice, diplomatic? So, but it's good. Like, I'm not talking, it's also about balance. That's the key. I'm not saying like yell at your kid. No, never yell at your kid. I have two daughters. The few times I raise my voice, I feel horrible. But yes, absolutely. Once in a while, they're going at it, and I'm like, could you stop? And I like,
Well, you can't constantly be yelling at your
But
kids.
that's what I'm
because
saying.
then
You
they
can't. Then they're
yeah.
abused, and then they're like, you
Well, no, but like
them.
they won't.
Then,
I was
yeah.
like, they won't even listen. It won't even register.
But exactly, balance, because it has diminishing
Yeah.
returns. And you hit the nail on the head. So I think because for so long, it was like, well, Ash doesn't really care about near-term dollars and cents. Ash isn't going to cancel this project. Ash isn't going to let me go. That I think a lot of people, and a lot of people is relative. We have overall a fantastic team. Overall, everybody is so good. But I realize that, my God, I'm living now in a world where there's just a lot more excuses. And, you want the explanation, but then you want to be able to solve that.
Right. So you have a note here, and it says, be careful what you ask for.
Be careful what you ask for. Oh, yeah. That's true. Okay, so ultimately, I think the difference between leadership and management is, so management is essentially like systems and rules and processes to keep order, especially in a chaotic world of disruption. You don't agree?
Well, I do agree, but I think it's more than that.
Of course, no, there's
Yeah.
many ways to explain things. What would you add to that?
Well, just figuring out what employees need from their job and trying to help them get there. And
then leadership is giving it to them, right? So I view leadership and management as two yin to the yang, because I
but
also
also
feel
like leadership is leading by example as well.
absolutely. And I had this little thing where the boss is in the back, and he's like whipping people, and the leader's the guy who's out in front, and that's why Alexander the Great was effective, because he would lead from the front and take the risks. You're 100% right, but that's my point. That like management may be about these are the systems. But then leadership is making exceptions and recognizing like, oh, maybe Dick should be the guy who gets the promotion, but Shelley may be like lower on the current org if you have an org chart, but Shelley's the one that merits it, and you kind of have to sit down, and then it's communication and all that. But so what I've also realized was, we joke about the hashtag live and learn. I kind of try to lead by example by kind of always empathizing and putting people in positions to succeed. And when somebody, for lack of a better word, drops the ball, I'm not going to throw them under the bus. I'm even going to help them with the explanations. Because I go, hey, what happened? And then I go, was this the cause? Was that the cause? What I've learned over time, and again, I've aged like 10 years each year. Each of the last 13 years, I feel like I've gained so much experience. What I realize is that when people use those kind of like acts of graciousness, seeing the forest through the trees, when then they run with it, whereas I was giving them cover and trying to not shatter their confidence or kind of say, look, I empathize, I know this is tough, I don't pretend it's easy. When they then take those and make them as excuses, then I go, yeah, I don't want to give in to darkness and evil and become the a-hole boss. But I then call them out. I go, look, I go, yes, I might have said that, and I mean it, because I think that's leadership. But management is now saying that that isn't going to work going forward. We need these results. So either we shouldn't be doing this, or you don't want to do it, or you can't do it, but we need to get to a place, because I go, I have so many people coming to me and asking for resources. You know, we could raise capital every day of the week, twice on Sunday, as they say, because we run a profitable business for 7 years in a high growth area, when media companies now are falling from the sky, realizing their models are not sustainable, they don't have the right unit economics. I purposely have decided not to, not just because investors and media doesn't mesh, but also because I think scarcity makes you come up with better solutions. And it helps you come up with things that are sustainable, and you got to make the right decisions instead of just throwing money at a problem, right? So I think what I meant by be careful what you ask for is more like be careful about basically what you say, because as a leader, you have to be positive. You have to be the statesman. You have to be the diplomat. But sometimes then when you have this culture where it's all about, oh, Ash isn't going to be a dick about things, then people start to use that against you, and you're like, no, this has to end right now, right here.
Fair enough.
This is extremely transparent, by the way, management. But I think, you know, when I started the company and I was like, oh my God, I've gone from being like an executive columnist to an entrepreneur, I would read a lot of things and I would talk to a lot of like academic, you know, like people who didn't necessarily work. And then entrepreneurs generally weren't necessarily writing articles that much. And I always used to go like, it would be great if somebody would be like, give us a fly in the wall insights into what it actually is, right? So I try to be realistic, not sugar-coated, with the caveat that a lot of people externally are going to maybe watch it and go, wow, this guy is so like open-minded and what a great organization. And then the perception gap, people internally are like, yeah, like I wish that was the case, but in my experience, you know, but I do think I try to balance like how we actually run the business with like tips that then people could take, because not everybody is running a YouTube channel when they watch these videos, you know?
Yeah. Well, we did cover a lot today. So if you have anything to say about anything we talked about, because I can't even pinpoint one particular point, let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next time.